The Slayer has been activated.
The first game I played in 2025 was Assassin's Creed Shadows. What I really liked about that game was, first and foremost, the setting. It was about high time that the Assassin's Creed got to Japan. And the game is beautiful. It's a top-tier world and atmosphere, and performance-wise, it ran really great on my machine. I did not like the English voice acting at all. I think it was low quality and it took me out of the immersiveness. But once I switched to Japanese voiceover, that changed completely, and it was top immersiveness. I liked the combat and the stealth, although the game was a little too easy. I did like all the assassination targets that the game laid out to accomplish, and the free approach as to which order to complete them. I didn't like the loot system too much. I think it was over-cluttered, which makes items less special or significant. I didn't find the dual protagonist setup very interesting. Now it represents the obvious protagonist that everyone wants to play, being the shinobi assassin. But overall, it was a great game and a great time that I look forward to continuing in the DLC. So, good job, Ubisoft. That brings us to number 11, which is Hell Is Us. That game was a bit of a disappointment to me though. Make no mistake, I do really appreciate the no hand-holding premise of any game, which is one of the reasons why games like Elden Ring are on my all-time greatest list, but Hell Is Us got me bored fairly quickly. And that is despite the production value being sky high and the performance was great on my machine. The world also seemed interesting at first, but unfortunately, after a few hours, I started feeling like running around in a confined environment, killing the same enemies over and over, while collecting glowing spheres and an endless number of implicit fetch quests. In other words, it felt like I started wasting my time with this game, which is never a good feeling. I would then rather just watch a good YouTube video about how the story unfolds, rather than running around fetching stuff with the occasional puzzle to solve. Although that might be a harsh take, I do really appreciate the ideas and hope that the studio behind has enough success to expand upon more ideas in the future. In a somewhat similar category, The Altars was very interesting in the beginning and had a creative original premise and a nice atmosphere, including some slick base building and resource management. It performed well and the production value was high, including some great acting. However, after having spent a fair amount of time with the game, I started getting very bored with it. Specifically the friendship simulation part, which turned out to be the core of the game. I got less and less interested in the relationships and the many talks and discussions between the different altars. Ultimately, I let it go as well, since I got that nagging feeling that it took too much of my valuable time, although I will be curious enough to look up how the story unfolds. As with Hell Is Us, I do appreciate the original ideas and concepts and execution, and do hope that the studio will have enough success to make more. Doom: The Dark Ages was great fun, and a good addition to the Doom series. The gameplay this time was a bit more defensive rather than aggressive, which I actually enjoyed more. And it still managed to get me into that zone where you're just flowing with the gameplay and where time disappears. Performance-wise, it was a bliss, and production quality was super high as usual. It was a good feeling to step into the boots of the Doom Slayer once again. Story-wise, it was pretty weak. The antagonist was not appealing or threatening in any way, which is a shame because it is a missed opportunity considering that Doom screams for some intimidating enemy. The introduction of the dragon and the mech levels was not really that great and felt pretty gimmicky, but otherwise it was a fun time. Back in the olden times, I really enjoyed tactical shooter games like SWAT 4 and the original Rainbow Six. And since then, I haven't seen many games make a good attempt at something similar, until I tried Ready or Not. It scratches that exact itch where tactics and precision rule everything, and the game over screen is just a moment of bad judgment away. On top of that, the game is very replayable in that no two games on the same map are similar, so it keeps you on your toes at all times. A very good addition to the already packed 2025 games roster. Tainted Grail was one of the positive surprises to me. That was at first a game that I had approached out of curiosity, but ended up enjoying thoroughly because of the great world building and the great characters. It felt very much like an Elder Scrolls game of old, in a good way. And it invoked the same sense of exploration and progression, which is a huge accomplishment. To be honest, at the time of my playthrough, the third act of the game was a bit of a buggy mess, and it felt like an incomplete beta version. But even so, I could forgive it and forget and complete the game, which is a testament to how enjoyable it was. I am very much looking forward to more from that studio. Death Stranding 2 got me bored. Make no mistake, I highly appreciate the strange mind of Kojima and the creativity that he brings to the gaming industry. But Death Stranding became a slow bore to me. I think I just got oversaturated with it and got to the limit of how interesting it is to transport packages and engage in long talks about philosophy. So yeah, no. On to better entertainment for me. I had high hopes for Dune Awakening for two reasons. I'm a great fan of the books and the movies and even the old PC games. And Dune is sort of an acquired taste that has a very specific feeling to it, which might be hard to capture. On top of that, I have friends and old colleagues who were working on Dune Awakening specifically, so I was rooting for them as well. Ultimately, Dune Awakening turned out better than I had hoped. It was a fantastic time surviving and thriving in the deserts of Dune Awakening, and the survival mechanics along with the base building mechanics were really well implemented. The biggest strength, in my opinion, was the world and the environment. They really managed to create a great version of Arrakis that felt very immersive. And it was great fun to spend time there with friends. Unfortunately, I do agree with a lot of other players in that the endgame of Dune suffered from a number of issues. Essentially, the game switched drastically into a grind mode with less fun and forced multiplayer, which meant that I let it go for a while and will come back later to continue in what I hope will be an improved version. However, that is after already spending 100+ hours that were very enjoyable in Dune Awakening, which I would call a tremendous success. The Battlefield 6 beta was a great surprise to me in that it felt like the good old Battlefield games again, meaning very much like Battlefield 3 and 4. Well-oiled class system, plenty of modification options, and reintroduction of the scoreboard even. Rewards to aim for, and most importantly, fantastically chaotic gameplay, with a great flow to it. On the flip side, the beta was missing some of the big Battlefield maps, which to me is the essential Battlefield experience. And for a while I was worried that we would have a Battlefield 6 that runs great and with great gunplay and moment-to-moment combat, but limited to a series of smaller intense maps, which is not really my style. Fortunately, it seems like the big Battlefield maps are coming along with the full release, so I cannot wait to re-engage in October. Metal Gear Solid 3 was a lot of fun to play through, especially when having played the original Metal Gear games multiple times and having been deep into the rabbit hole that is the lore behind the whole Metal Gear franchise. The updated version of Metal Gear Solid 3 lived up to the expectations in bringing us a version that graphically lived up to modern standards, even looking exceptional, while maintaining the quirkiness and gameplay of the original. At the same time, it was interesting to note that it felt different to play in 2025, where we are used to different gameplay expectations and have forgotten about the 20 minutes long cutscenes interrupted by 10 minutes of somewhat clunky stealth gameplay or climbing a ladder for 3 minutes. And I would understand if the whole thing seems utterly confusing and strange for a newcomer that only plays through Metal Gear Solid 3 as a standalone experience. However, I thoroughly enjoyed my reunion with the boss and Naked Snake. Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 is a masterpiece of a role-playing game for several reasons. It has a very compelling protagonist in Henry, who at this point is established as a character that will be remembered fondly in gaming history, along with a range of fantastic side characters. The story itself is amazing and top-tier entertainment with loads of unpredictable twists and turns. The main story, along with a huge world brimming with side stories and life, makes for a very immersive experience that is only heightened even further by the minimum hand-holding. It is as simple as you never know what's going to happen next or what is around the next corner. Endlessly entertaining and a testament to what can be achieved in-game. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 turned out to be in a league of its own, where it's almost just as much an art piece as it is a video game. And talking about original story, the narrative was absolutely top tier. Mature, emotional, interesting, creative, and memorable. Add to that a very beautiful and original world and character relationships that were unforgettable. And then a plot that not only twists, but sometimes even shocks you or leaves you very emotional, to the point that if you don't get a tear in your eyes at least a couple of times during this game, you must be made of cement. The core gameplay even managed to improve on decades of traditional turn-based JRPG mechanics, something that would seem impossible for anyone to do outside of the Final Fantasy series, no less outside Japan. And the music. The music is so good that it stops people in their tracks after a few seconds, even if they haven't played the game. And when you have played the game, it's impossible to listen to without getting a little bit emotional. Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a game that will be remembered for decades to come.